Patchwork Bride by Sandra, Chapter 7. Nell loved the snow that fell on the high plains. She liked standing in the doorway and looking out at the sweep of white, the far mountain peaks shimmering. When she rode out across the prairie with Buddy, she saw the footprints of rabbits and deer, and sometimes she caught sight of the brown antelope with their white rumps that were almost invisible against the snowy land. Buddy told her they were curious, and once they tied their horses in a arroyo and crept along so they were close to the animals. Buddy tied his bandana to a stick and raised it up, and the antelope came over to investigate. The New Mexico snow was dry, and unlike the heavy Midwestern snows that Nell was used to, it didn't stay on the ground all winter but melted away as soon as the storm ended and the sun came out. Of course, it was too cold to sit on the porch on winter evenings, but Nell and Buddy found ways to see each other. Nell waited until Buddy was in the corral before she went out to feed the chickens. She loved the chickens, each one with a different personality. The blue one, missing feathers on one side, was mean, always pecking at the others, while the chicken with the brown feathers, the tips red as a rooster's comb, was cheeky. The white one was a warrior. Sometimes Nell and Buddy sat on the corral fence and watched them, throwing corn or food scraps to their favorites. Buddy found reasons to come to the ranch house at night. He chopped stove wood and brought it into the kitchen. Then he sat among the geraniums in the window ledge in the light of a kerosene lamp, patching a bridle or oiling his boots, while Nell pieced her quilts. He found excuses to come into the kitchen during the daytime, too, watching Nell and Lucy cook, paring potatoes for them or carrying out scraps to the chickens. He even helped Nell hang up the laundry, handing her wooden clothespins while she pinned the sheets and shirts to the line to dry as hard as fence posts in the stiff winter wind. Once he brought his woolies Angora chaps to Nell and asked her to help wash them. "Make the house smell like sheep dip," Lucy muttered. "That's not a good thing for a cattle ranch." But Lucy liked Buddy and approved of the courtship. When their work was done, Buddy took Nell riding, often over snowy trails toward the mountains. Sometimes they checked on the cattle, or Nell helped Buddy repair a fence. She wore heavy gloves lined with rabbit fur, but even then her hands got cold, and Buddy would take off their gloves and hold their hands together inside his coat. Often as they rode along side by side, Buddy talked about the future. "I'm not always going to be a hired hand. I plan on having my own ranch," he told her. "Doesn't that take an awful lot of money?" Nell asked. "I've got a bit saved up. More than a bit." Nell knew what a cowboy's wages were and said, "You have to work a long time to have enough to buy a ranch." Then she realized that Buddy could marry someone who had enough money to buy a ranch, Alice. "Oh, like I told you before, I had a dab of money before I came here. I'll need more to swing it, but I got enough for a down payment," Buddy said, as if he knew what she was thinking. He explained that he had inherited his parents' farm in Iowa and sold it. "I didn't want to be a granger all my life. I came out here to learn the cattle business, and I guess I know enough now to make a ranch." "So you're leaving the Rockin' A?" Nell tried to keep her concern out of her voice. Maybe Buddy had just been trifling with her. She knew he liked her, but he had never declared himself. "Not just yet, but before too long. I got a place in mind." He was quiet, and Nell didn't push him. She learned a great deal about Buddy on those outings. He was kind and compassionate. He didn't like to hurt animals, and if he found a bird with a broken wing, he'd take it back to the barn and try to doctor it. While the other cowboys tossed the bunkhouse mice they caught into the stove, Buddy took them outside and let them go. He hunted antelope and deer, but that was for food and not for the joy of killing. Buddy was patient. He would sit and think about a problem before he tried to solve it. And once he made up his mind, he never deviated. He was stubborn that way, too stubborn, Nell thought, although she understood it because she was stubborn too. He expected once he'd made up his mind about a thing, she should go along with it. Nell didn't always agree, particularly when it came to what he expected of her. There was one other thing. He was jealous. Owen McIntosh showed up at the Rockin' A in a buggy one Sunday after Christmas and invited Nell to have lunch with him at the Plaza Hotel in Las Vegas. Buddy, sitting in the kitchen when Owen arrived, seethed, but he hadn't any right to tell her not to go. Nell wore her red dress and had a grand time. Owen was polished, a fine talker, and he ordered a good meal. She even let him buy her cowboy coffee, whiskey neat, and on the way home, warm under a fur robe, the two sang college songs. Buddy was in the corral when they rode past. Except for meals, Buddy didn't come to the ranch house for 2 or 3 days. Not long after that, Owen rode out to the ranch, arriving just at dinner time. Mr. Archer invited him to sit down with the cowboys. Nell thought the hands might find Owen high-headed, maybe play jokes on him, but Owen fit right in. He knew enough about ranching to join in the conversation, and when he failed to understand a thing, he didn't try to bluff. Instead, he asked outright what was meant. The hands liked that, all but Buddy. He glared at Owen until Lucy asked Buddy if he was off his feed. When the other cowboys went back to work, Buddy stayed in the kitchen, watching. Owen didn't seem to mind. In fact, he told Buddy he was glad for company because, he said, "I have a grand idea. There's a winter carnival with ice skating in town on Saturday night, and Alice is dying to have you escort her. I could take Nell. We thought the two of you could ride into town together and we'd meet you there." Nell wasn't sure it was such a grand idea. She wouldn't mind attending with Owen, but she didn't like the idea of Buddy taking Alice. Lucy, who was washing the dishes, spoke up. "You go on, Nell. I can handle supper for the boys." Nell glanced at Buddy, who had been watching her. He grinned shyly. "Why, that's a fine idea." Nell stiffened. Maybe Buddy wanted to be with Alice. "Capital," Owen said. "Alice says she thinks you've deserted her. She'll be delighted." He winked at Buddy. "Wait until you see the cunning little skating outfit she's going to wear." "Do you know how to skate?" Nell asked Buddy. "I guess I can manage." After the men left, Nell told Lucy, "You should have said I couldn't go." "Don't be so glum. Buddy's only trying to make you jealous. You go and have a good time with Owen. That'll be the best revenge." Nell wasn't so sure. The two of them rode their horses into town the afternoon of the carnival. The sky was clear, but Buddy said you never knew when it might snow, and if it did, they would be better on horseback than in a buggy. When they arrived, Alice and Owen were already at the skating rink. Alice surrounded by young men. She was indeed ragged out in a white skating outfit with a little fur muff. Nell had worn her divided skirt and a wool coat of Lucy's, cut from a trapper blanket, and thought she looked fine when she viewed herself in a mirror at the ranch. Compared to Alice, however, Nell felt dowdy. "Alice is likely to freeze. You've dressed just exactly right," Owen told her, taking her arm and leading her to a booth that rented skates. He turned to Buddy. "Alice brought your skates from the house." "I wouldn't think a cowboy would know how to skate," Nell said. "Oh, he didn't. Alice taught him last winter. She even bought him skates for a Christmas present. The cowboys teased him something awful, but in fact he's quite good." Nell was a competent ice skater, but nothing like Alice, who flitted back and forth across the ice, twirling around, her skirt billowing about her. Sometimes she skated by herself, but most of the time she held hands with Buddy. "They're very good together, don't you think?" Owen asked, and Nell had to grit her teeth and agree. "I guess it's plain she's stuck on him," Owen added. Once the two couples exchanged partners, "Alice is awfully good on skates," Nell repented, determined not to let Buddy know she despised the girl. "If you like ice skating, I guess. Don't you? I'm a cowpuncher. I'll get teased like the devil if the boys find out I went ice skating again." "Then why did you come?" "I wanted to have a good time. Isn't that why you're here?" Buddy nodded. "Well, somebody had to protect you from Owen." Nell should have been pleased by the remark, but instead she flared. Buddy was presumptuous. "I can take care of myself. I don't need some self-appointed rescuer. Besides, Owen's a gentleman." "You mean he's no cowpuncher?" "I didn't say that, and you know I don't believe any such thing." The scratchy gramophone music ended, and the couples changed partners again. Owen suggested they get cocoa, and the four skated over to a concession stand. Owen pulled out a flask and poured a slug of whiskey into Alice's cup, and then his own. He held out the flasks to Nell, who poured a small amount into her cocoa. Buddy shook his head. Then Owen proposed they take off their skates and sit in the stand to watch fireworks, but Nell said she had to leave. "I get up early to help with breakfast," she told them. "Oh, I forget you're the hired girl," Alice said. "I suppose you expect Buddy to take you home." "I can ride out with her," Owen said. "I'll just get my horse." Buddy put his hand on Owen's arm. "I brought Miss Nell, and I'll see her home," he said in a firm voice. Alice pouted. "We haven't been together in over a year, and you're leaving already? I am entirely hurt," she said, then kissed Buddy on the cheek, and would have kissed him on the mouth if they'd been alone, Nell thought. The night was bright with stars. Millions of tiny white lights sparkled from horizon to horizon and lit by the moon. The prairie was vast and silent, and it seemed they were the only ones out. Nell and Buddy rode in silence, but it was a comfortable silence, as if neither wanted to spoil the majesty of the night by talking. In fact, it would have been a perfect night if it hadn't been for Alice, Nell thought. But she didn't say anything about her, and Buddy didn't comment on Owen. As they neared the ranch house, Buddy said, "I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell anyone that I went ice skating." Both of them overlooked their jealousy at the ice skating party and fell into their familiar ways again. Buddy came to the ranch house in the evenings, and Nell found chores to do outside when Buddy was around. Sometimes after Lucy and Mr. Archer retired for the night, Buddy sat next to Nell in the front of the adobe fireplace in the kitchen and held her hand, or tucked his head under her chin and tucked her head under his chin and put his arms around her. He hadn't said anything about the future, and Nell knew she couldn't hurry him. One day Owen sent a note to the Rockin' A inviting Nell to go into town with him to see a play. She could stay all night with Alice at the McIntosh house. Nell talked it over with Lucy. Buddy overheard and told her that sleeping at the McIntosh house when Owen was there wasn't proper. He said people would talk, and she wasn't to go, not if she cared about her reputation. "You didn't mind what people thought when you gave out my handkerchief," she flared, but Buddy told her that was different. Nell didn't see much difference. "I won't allow it," he said. You won't allow it, Nell flared. She had been ironing, and she held the sad iron in the air as if it were a weapon. You don't have any right to tell me what to do. Buddy looked sheepish. No, ma'am, I do not. I was only advising you. Nell thought it over and eventually told Owen no. She said she was needed at the ranch, but that wasn't the reason. While she chaffed at Buddy's presumption, thinking he hadn't the right to interfere, and she was disappointed that Buddy's affection hadn't gone beyond a few hugs and kisses, Nell turned down Owen's invitation because she didn't want to stay in the same house with Alice. She liked Buddy too much. In fact, Nell loved him. She hadn't told Lucy, or Buddy, of course. She'd barely told herself. She'd never feel that way about Owen, and it would be wrong to lead him on. Besides, making Buddy jealous, she realized, only led to trouble. I'm glad you didn't go to that play in town, Buddy told her one afternoon in the late winter when they had ridden out to check on a windmill that had stopped working. Nell was silent. She didn't tell Buddy that Owen had asked her out twice more, and she turned him down. I never had a liking for him. He's too high-hat for the rest of us, Buddy continued. And Alice isn't, Nell wanted to reply, but kept the retort to herself. He flaps his mouth too much, just like that windmill, at least when it's working, Buddy said when they stopped at the watering tank and looked up at the blades. I guess I'll have Wendell to fix it. Why can't you do it? Nell asked. She was surprised because Buddy seemed to be able to fix anything. I expect I could, but I'm not going up there. Why not? Buddy turned red and looked away. I thought the cattle needed the water. Yep, but the truth is I'm scared to death to climb up there. You, Nell, had seen Buddy ride bucking broncos and go out in a blizzard to check the cattle. He stomped on a rattlesnake that had coiled itself around the clothesline pole, and he had distracted an angry bull from Monty, who'd been bucked off his horse near the animal. I can't get more than 5 feet off the ground without my hands sweat, and I get all light in the head. It's a failing I have, and it shames me. Nell thought that over. I could do it. I could climb up there. It's too dangerous, Buddy told her. I've climbed trees higher than that. It wouldn't be right, a lady like you climbing that windmill. Nell didn't argue. Instead, before Buddy could stop her, she grabbed a coiled rope, put it over her shoulder, and began climbing the windmill. She didn't stop until she was at the top. I can see right here how it's broken, she said. Send up those do-funnies you brought along. Put them in the bucket that's over next to the tank. She tied one end of the rope to the windmill and tossed the other end to the ground. You send them up and I'll fix it. Buddy put the items into the bucket and tied the rope to the bucket handle, and Nell pulled it up. Within minutes she had completed the repair and was back down on the ground. Where'd you learn to fix windmills? Buddy asked. My grandparents' farm. Grandpa had rheumatism and couldn't climb, so he sent me up when anything went wrong with the windmill. Well, I never saw a lady that could do that before. Oh, I can do plenty of things, Nell said, basking in Buddy's approval. Then she added, and some of them aren't so ladylike. Nell thought of Alice and preened a little. That's the kind of girl I'd like to have on my ranch one day. Nell's heart thumped as she glanced at Buddy, not sure what he was getting at. You think I could hire you as one of my hands? Oh, Nell thought that was all. He was joking. Not if I have to sleep in a bunkhouse. Buddy cleared his throat, sleep in my bed. Nell was so startled that she dropped the bucket. What? She said. There was anger in her voice. Buddy turned red and shook his head. I didn't mean it like that, he paused. I didn't plan to ask you until everything was ready, but I guess now's as good a time as any, since I've just got myself into a nest of rattlesnakes here. That ranch I got my eye on, I'll own it before the year's out. It's a fine place, good water and grass, a little cabin too. And I plan to buy a real bed, no ticks stuffed with straw, and a cook stove. It's everything I ever wanted, but I don't care to live there alone. A ranch can get awful lonesome if you're by yourself. He paused and looked down at his hands. I think you're like me, and Lord knows I think you like me, and Lord knows I like you, and oh hell, Nell, will you marry me? For a moment Nell was speechless. She had dreamed of this, but she was startled. She'd never thought Buddy would propose at a water tank. Finally she murmured, "You want me to marry you?" "I think I just said that." "You mean this is a proposal of marriage?" "I'd get down on one knee, but the ground is awful muddy. You can say yes or you can say no, but don't tell me you got to think it over." Nell took a deep breath and looked into Buddy's eyes, which at that moment were the exact color of the earth. "Of course I'll marry you." Buddy took her in his arms and swung her around and around until he slipped and they both fell into the mud. Nell landed on her back, Buddy on top of her, and they lay like that for a long time, Buddy pinning her down and kissing her. It's the end of chapter 7.